te te takita tinta tagin 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 day. Dha takadin te te ta dha takadin te te ta dhagin. Thari kita takita din tatak dari kita kuputa din tatak kita din te te ta dhagre te ta takita din takara takade dha dha na dhan te kadra te.
Good evening, friends. Welcome to the Shongram Institute for Performance and Social Justice. We are so excited and humbled and grateful to celebrate tremendous artists who are part of our community. We will begin, as always, with a prayer song recorded for us by JANICE Bad Moccasin. Thank you. Tonight we are going to be joined by Maria, who will help us with ASL interpretation. The first of the artists we are celebrating today is the mayor of the Shongram Institute, Maestro Douglas EWART. Maestro Douglas EWART has worked and innovated across music, movement, sculpture, mask and instrument design, community organizing, and is all of that makes him the genius that he is. I'm excited to be working with him in different capacities. Maestro, welcome.
Thank you.
He's also the creator of the George Floyd Bunt Staff, which he will be talking about. Here you go, Maestro.
Oh, it's so great to be here. I started collaborating with Ananya some years ago. I don't remember the exact year, but it was it the 30th of McKnight Foundation? Anyway, we did a tops piece then, a piece with spinning tops, dance, water, vocals, with Manque and Dosi was part of that. And it was my first time really working with Ananya. We had seen each other and spoken of doing something. And ever since, we've been in forward motion. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with so many fantastic community people. And to top it off, Jaya is here. And Jaya is the prodigy of two of my former students from the School of the Art Institute. So it's really special to have that continuum. We're in an interesting period, and I suppose everyone from every generation says that, and in some ways lament some of the current challenges that we're facing. I also feel very optimistic and positive because of the work that we're involved in as community and several of the people that are here. that I've known doing their own process, and the confluence of community effort. I'm going to say what comes to my mind. Be sure to vote. Be sure to vote. I mean, you know, it's a process that we often don't address, and people often say that their lives are not political, but I think they don't really know what politics means. And so I'm concerned about us just being engaged as community, and some of the young people that are here are turning 18 and so on. So I want to make sure they go and register to vote. I won't tell you what the irony is. I'll save that for another time. Well, maybe I'll tell you. I've been here for 60 years on the 28th of this month, and I'm still not a citizen. And part of it is because I feel I'm a citizen of the globe. I don't think, I know I am. And so even with the difficulty of traveling, I've not surrendered to the notion. I think borders are bad. And that if we were really thinking about humanity on a global level, we wouldn't have to have them, because people would be glad to stay where they are, especially if they weren't being exploited to the point where they have to move. And much of the turmoil that we are facing is because of exploitation. There was an old mentor of mine, John Shanoy Jackson, that used to say to us, it's okay for us to use each other, but we should never abuse each other. And although, you know, sometimes even the term used can seem a bit repulsive, I knew what he meant, because we utilize each other to make certain things happen for that person as well as for ourselves. But when I think of the Caribbean, from where I'm from, and when I think of Africa, and I think of India, because I grew up with a lot of people that had come to Jamaica as indentured servants, and the whole thing was so exploitative and dehumanizing. However, we have found ways to surmount even those obstacles. And so it is with great positivity that I'm here, you know, and I feel that we must always maintain that spirit and that fervor that we gonna change this. We have to change it. And I think it's important, even when one makes themselves vulnerable, to speak up and out. And I suppose, as my brother would say, we got it legitimately, because we have aunts that were in labor movements and were beaten, and they never capitulated. I am emotional about it, because I think about one of my aunts that died pretty young, and it was from issues with her brain, and I wondered how those beatings might have precipitated her early departure. I know there are several other people to speak. One of the things I want to say, since there are many young people here, is learn many things. there's this notion that you can't be good at but one thing. It's not true. I think each thing that you learn enhances the other. That's been it for me. And I'm sure many of my teachers wondered what was going to become of me. In some ways, when I was in school, it really wasn't designed for somebody like me. It was too confining, and I left really early. I dropped out of elementary school, actually. But what I wanted to say to the young people is, and which is part of what this institute is about, is be thorough about what you do and be passionate and unrelenting about what you're doing. And some of the greatest opposition you will face are from other people in your practice, or people that are practicing in the same form, or art form, if you will. I don't think of my way as a career, because people will say, well, like, what's your career? I'm like, I don't have a career. I don't believe in it. I'm living. That's what I'm doing. And I only try to do things that I enjoy. That's why I left school. And I did go back. But I think we conflate schooling with education, and they're very different things. And so people are into being credentialed, and they think that people are educated. And sometimes people try to impress me by telling me where they went to school. And I start coughing. That was inadvertent, actually. But the reason that some of my skepticism comes out regarding some of the so-called fine institutions is they're some of the most unjust and cruel people, systems that I've ever seen. And if you go to these schools where I've had the occasion to go to several universities as a guest speaker. I don't know if I want to use the word lecturer, but they say that. But a guest speaker or talker, ask the people in the lunchroom if you want to know what's really happening. The people that work in the lunchroom, I mean. And they will tell you, especially if they're from that vicinity, they'll tell you about appropriation and how they were pushed off their land and so on. And these schools do very little to accommodate or to reach out to the people, the young people in that area. But to finish my statement, I want to just entreat you, the young people, and the older people too. I'm still learning how to do stuff. I'm always enthusiastic about learning something new so that I can expand what I'm doing. And I see no boundaries between my practices, you know, painting, drawing, making sculpture, learning how to do new technique, clay work. It's all the same. It's just, to me, it's having fun. And if you're not having fun, then you might as well be done. But I wanted to just say that one of the reasons that I always talk about the difference between education and schooling is there are plenty of people who go to school and they got all kinds of stuff, but you wouldn't want to be around them, or you wouldn't want your children to be around them. You have to have a total sort of embrace with life, and part of it is being fair. And it's not that we don't do wrong things, but you got to be willing to correct them. And you got to be willing to correct them openly. And so a lot of philanthropy that we see is people trying to buy integrity with philanthropy. And so, yes. I love music and I love dance, and so I'm loving being here so much.
The mayor of the institute.
That might be my cue.
Will you talk about your instrument, Maestro?
I'm sorry.
Will you introduce your instrument?
Oh, absolutely.
Maestro, will you, here, will you use this, please?
Oh, yeah. But before I do that,
Here.
I want to do one thing before I do that, if time permits.
Yeah.
It will only be
Yeah.
a short moment,
Okay.
but it's important.
Okay.
I'll mention the George Floyd Bunt Staff in a minute, and I'll just play this for a few seconds.
For the live stream.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I forget about the live stream. Typically, though, my voice carries. George Floyd was not an anomaly, but part of a way of life, oppression, suppression, repression, aggression. The police force was never designed or invented to be peaceful. It was to subjugate and obliterate poor people. George Floyd was not an anomaly, not only in America, but throughout the globe, as we see how people that have been systematically, and systemically disenfranchised. Always qualify when you speak of being poor, monetarily poor. But most of us came from very rich families, people that surmounted so many obstacles and made a way for us to be what we are today. This is the George Floyd Bunt Staff. Bunting, these are bunt pans. Bunt pans were developed as baking tins, such as this one at the bottom, made of steel. B-U-N-D-T. And then I've been making or preparing to make this instrument for many years, and I was inspired and compelled by the murder in broad daylight of George Floyd to complete the instrument. And that's when it occurred to me that George Floyd bunted, B-U-N-T-E-D, with his life. And as you know, in baseball, bunting is usually a sacrificial play. Whether deliberately or inadvertently, the ramifications are the same. We had never seen anything like the response, the global response to the murder of George Floyd. Thanks to the confluence of COVID, people being off their various plantations. And when I say being off the plantation, I'm talking about everybody, doctors, lawyers, they're on the plantation too. They think they're not, but they are. That's why we have opioid distribution and doctors that don't look at old practices because they're on plantations in mentality. What was that young lady's name? Fraser? What's her first name? Daniela Frazier. Thank you. Darnella Frazier. Thank you. Darnella Frazier. I was having a moment there. Darnella Frazier Darnella Fraser, thanks to her, we had it on videotape. And so, with everyone being off the plantation, we were able to focus. Had it not been for COVID, everyone would have said how terrible it was, and then we'd all have to run back to the plantation the next morning. I'd never seen such a response. Darnella, we thank you. George Goodwin was the one that videotaped Rodney King's beating. I love myself. I remain positive. I love myself. I love, not in a narcissistic way, but in order to love you, I must love myself. I love the human spirit. I love the human spirit. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. I love the human spirit. I love myself. I love the human spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Maestro. Maestro, we are grateful to be able to celebrate you tonight. Maestro is also, among many other things, he's also the 2022 McKnight Distinguished Artist. Yay. And now I get to introduce my friend of many years, JANICE Bad Moccasin, who weaves together song, movement, ritual to facilitate healing justice. JANICE is 2022, the McKnight 2022 Community-Engaged Artist Fellow, and I am so proud to celebrate her. Welcome, JANICE. Yay.
I've never ever been in the seat like this before, only in a hot seat.
You're in a hot seat now.
The hottest seat. I just want to thank, I'm going to take a little drink of water before I talk here. I want to thank the mayor for his talented gifts. I've never met him, and it's just amazing for sharing your gift to the world. Hamitakiapi, ha Dakota ia wambri wa chinwik a tishunka wa pia we amakiapia. Chante washte na pechiusapia. Greetings with a good heart and handshake to you in friendship and relatives today. Damakota, I am Dakota. Dakota oyate wokik suyuk a woyu oniha. I want to acknowledge my Dakota relatives and ancestors in spirit world, and as a way of respect and permission to share of our teachings in remembrance of our ancestors. Ananya, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this celebration. And, you know, Sorry, I'm just kind of at a loss for words right now. It's Monday evening and not my favorite day. I think I want to sing a song with you so I can, ground myself and get myself ready. I'm going to sing a prayer song with the hand drum, deriving strength from the animal relative that gave its life for this hand drum, and the strength and courage for all of us to continue on today. This song is saying, Wakantaka, Creator, the Great Spirit, Mystery, and Source. I am praying with my relatives today, and we're sending out prayers for all in the 4 directions. Wakatankaya Ushimalayo O Makiayo O Makiayo The song offering changed course because at this time it was, I deliberated coming because I have a relative getting ready to journey home. And my relatives just buried another relative today. And there's lots of friends out there that are grieving and mourning. And when you think about it, we're on a global level of grieving and mourning. From our ancestral genocide and historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, and what we carry in our bodies. And so I'll share with you for a little bit here about my work in Indian country, Native communities. I still am a servant to my family and relatives and communities. I don't get paid hourly or don't volunteer or anything like that. It's been a summoned spiritual role. And I inherited this position or this role, societal role of being Wea Tonka, at a place where the people are going to depend on you. And so wisen your spirit and get ready. I used to help my uncle, my Dekshi, Joe Bad Moccasin. He was a great officiator, and he buried our people all out of love and gave them hope to move forward the next moment and the next day. And next thing you know, years later, they're thriving again. once they have made a human and a spiritual relationship with their loved ones in spirit world in time. I didn't choose this role. My uncle, right before he passed in the hospital, he told my family, he said, Janice is going to continue this work on, and she's going to help traditionally bury our people, because, we stepped away from that church burials, so as a part of reclamation, we're going to continue to bury our people, and she's going to do that. So when I heard that, I knew a great responsibility fell into my hands. And given the situation, you don't give it back, so you take it on. And I didn't think of things like, I'm not ready, or I don't think I want to do this, It's that healing work that when the people call on you, you show up. It's kind of aligns with your social justice work. When people are calling on you, you show up, and for that cause, because that causative is of life and energy and force. I was sharing with Ananya today, or in my discussions with her, that it was, if I didn't do this kind of work, I would never had the opportunity to deepen my Dakota values of compassion and love in such a spiritual depth. Being immersed in hopelessness, wanting to help this family but not knowing what to do, on to being present, singing a song, and speaking ceremoniously life into their hearts to live for another moment and another day. And so that was my greatest investment in myself that I could ever give selflessly of my work. And what drives me is my community and the knowledge of my ancestors. So I go to the place where I first met Ananya. They were having a gathering like this, a community participation. They were doing a borders segment. So I didn't really understand social justice, dance, and movement then. But I showed up and I was there and I met her and I thought, this is really cool, that you move your bodies and you speak with your bodies and you do the work and it looks like dance, but it's a lot going on, and a lot of translation. So after that, we stayed in touch, and I would always, show up at the performances and, meet the dancers and have discussions with her, and then we became friends. And the best part I like of our friendship is I get to tease and joke with her like nobody else can. She gets silently mad a little bit, but she hangs in there. She gets that Dakota humor. So I see us collaborating in music, prayer, reflections, and I see us collaborating in the future. And I want to acknowledge one of my Dakota mentors here who created a path and really pulled me, encouraged me into my first creativity of writing. Diane Wilson here, you all know her. She's a well-known Dakota author. She she invited me, and I said, no, I don't think I can. I'm not creative, or, you know, I don't write. And she said, oh, you have a lot to say. So I trust that process. And, you know, it was a 2-year Native women's writing cohort, and I stuck it out. And I was happy about that. And also sat on some panels, you know, with Carolyn Holbrook. You know, we talk about grief. And we had a panel discussion after the George Floyd, you know, the incident, or the murder, actually. I did show up at the protest to be with my young people and to bear witness, you know, like who's throwing rocks and who's instigating it. And I got it on my phone, and I, you know, create awareness. But one thing I started doing with a friend is smudging, providing sage in the crowds, because there was a lot of grief and triggered trauma. And so I wanted to be there and help my relatives, my Hasapa relatives. I wanted to help out. And I knew this was going to be one of the greatest, you know, movements. I saw George Floyd's spirit as a, you know, as an angel warrior, you know. Me and Ananya went down to pray one time just on a random day. I didn't know, you know, the agenda, what was going on, but we went down together to pray because I thought, you know, we're all there in prayer and, you know, our spaces, but who's paying attention to the immediate place where that took place so he can go up? And so in my practice of end of life and after, you know, death and burial, I wanted to go and help out in some way and to sing to his spirit and to tell him to ascend, to go home. You know, he did his job here. So I and Ananya went to that, and we did a circle, and we, you know, we prayed together, and I sang, and then I could feel his spirit go up, and I cried because that was a sacrifice for him. He lit the nation globally, and so it was an awakening to many things these days. So I just want to talk about a little bit about, you know, being selected as one of the McKnight Fellowship recipients. You know, I'm really grateful to McKnight and the Pillsbury community. They're very, very helpful. And I'm grateful for Ananya for pushing me through that too. Yeah, I gave up a couple times, and she said she knew it, but I don't know. You know, spirit takes over, and you trust that process. You just do it, and it was hard, but I compiled a lot of my work over the past 25 years in grief, support, and all the healing modalities that I share with a Native community and people of color in general, you know, at workshops. So I also do a lot of workshops. I work with horses. They're my healing partners. And, you know, so when I thought about, okay, what will I do now, you know, with this? Where am I going to go now? This is going to take me somewhere. First, I was ecstatic. You know, joy was trying to come out of my body, but then I was overwhelmed, and I was like, I don't know, this is my first one, you know, I'll just be in it. And I, you know, I told my mom, and she's so quiet and calm all the time, you know, she just sat there and said, oh, that's good. So, you know, but my healing work, I know that I'm moving towards healing justice for our Dakota people, our Ochete Shakawee, our women of all colors, families, even our brothers. And I think, you know, because I'm answering the call and response to all that our ancestors had gone through and that we continue to go through. You know, we can look at our great-grandparents and you know, they were the last of the matriarchal anchors. And so when I mention the Dakota values, you know, one thing that keeps me grounded is the Dakota values. Courage, wisdom, generosity, respect, prayer, humbleness, and humility. Because I needed a guide to keep me grounded, because, like, you know, we could be misled by a lot of people. When one of our members over here said, you know, about society out there, who do you follow? What do you do? Who's telling the truth? Which way is the right way? You know, I needed a solid anchor to guide me. And I threw it out, a stone into Badote. And that was going to be my anchor to see me through a lot of tough times. Because if I give up on a tough time, then I fall back to learn again, to step up again. And that helped me to reach out to Wamakashka, our animal nations. Our Dakota and Lakota philosophy and spirituality is based on creation. You know, we're relatives to all of creation, everything that has life source in it. In my grief work, I acknowledge that nothing dies. Nothing dies. It returns to the earth and it regenerates. And so that gives me hope, you know, that we are in a time where we not just let's not survival only anymore. Let's regenerate ourselves with our matriarchal anchors, our great-great-grandmothers who upheld those values and that strength in your hearts and your mind. Let's not be polluted by colonial thought and power anymore. We move to our grandmother's strategic way of taking care of things. She didn't judge and she didn't criticize. She just did it. Ojuye, let's wake the woman warrior up within ourselves. A pretty pine woman, pine leaf woman. She rode into one of the great battles, and also one of my ancestral grandmothers, moving robe woman. She was Ojuye, and she did it out of love for her family. Her little brother got killed in the Battle of Little Bighorn. She jumped on her horse and she charged in, and she counted coup on the soldiers, and she was getting ready to kill a soldier, and he said, don't kill me, I have a family. So in the language, she said, if you did not come here to kill my people, then why are you here? Boom, counted coup. But I want to say that when these women were riding into war, they had their warrior stick. and it was made of choke cherry sticks. And when she rode into war, Pine Leaf Woman, there were 2 other warriors from another tribe charging at her. So she rode faster and sang her song with her war stick. And when they got close, the warriors dispersed because they got so afraid of her energy. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, Ojuya. Bring her to life. So that's what I want to do, is regenerate through the next step in my practice, in my healing work, is to get involved in movement, in breath, body, and ceremony. Ceremonializing our bodies. Let's do it. Ceremonializing our bodies. So I'm gonna, so that fellowship, so that makes my, you know, it's a call, but also I wanna also have it for me, because I've always been drawn to a way to move, but how do I move and what do I do? So it's Ojuya regenerating. Matriarchal anchors, values, and becoming those woman warriors, ceremonializing our bodies to liberate our bodies, because we're done carrying all that trauma now. We got new work to do. We got new work to do to evolve now. You know, let's get out of the pain. Let's carry this justice and right to heal forward. And so lastly, I just enrolled in this movement class, and it happens to be in Prague, Czech Republic. But it's a one-of-a-kind unique that has my type of movement, task-based movements, adaptions, improvisations, and I get to take martial arts education and indigenous movement and symbols and energies and combine it all and create something. I don't even know what it is, but I'm so excited about it. So that's what's going to happen. So lastly, I just want to leave you with a thank you song. Is that okay? You want to dance to it? I also want to thank the people in live stream. If there's Hunkbatis and Dakotas and my friends and relatives, thank you for joining us tonight. Iho wopira tanka mitakuye oyasi, all my relatives. I'm done.
I'm so grateful to celebrate all these amazing artists. Now we get to celebrate Sean Webster, the fabulous poet, graphic artist, writer and parent extraordinaire, very, very important, who has also just published his second volume of poetry, Whale Song, 2023 by Black Ocean Press. Here is what Fahima Ife, who is the author of Maroon Choreography, has to say about this book. I quote, "The fluid musicality in Sean Webster's Whale Song emerges in the feeling of a sensual ensemble of Black study, a new brand of experimental poetics called neotropicalism, a movement made of depths and the impulse to, as the muses signal through Webster, quote, make a noise from within the wake," end quote. It begins with engulfment, a philosophical question of meaning, sounding, and containment. I am so excited to be engulfed by the poetics of Sean Webster. Sean, please, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Ananya. Thank you, everyone who had a hand in making this happen. It's so lovely to be here and to see you all. I think that I'll just begin with calling words into the room that are not mine, right? And Christina Sharp's book, In the Wake, on Blackness and Being was really fundamental to the kind of conversation that I wanted to have in Whale Song. And so she has this other extraordinary book called Ordinary Notes. And I'm going to read note 18. And in it she says, "I wanted to write about silences and terror and acts that hover over generations, over centuries. I began by writing about my mother and grandmother." And that's the end of the note. But something so profound about figuring out a way to think about and with and through the terror. And I suppose that if I were to say something in preface to the reading, it would be that this was an attempt at trying to be suspended in a thinking with the terror. So, I'm going to read the foreword just as a way to hopefully be an invitation to allow us to have a conversation with the text on its terms, which doesn't mean you have to agree with the text terms. I'd be surprised if everyone in the room did. Alarmed maybe. But I want to invite you to the text's terms. A word at the so-called before. If the sea is history, as Walcott tells us, then Whale Song is an attempt at beginning. If we believe in such orderings of time, there, in the water, the abyssal. Here in these assemblages is a prolonged struggle to snatch something from the depths against the belief that nothing can be recovered. I no longer believe anything can be recovered, and yet I cannot forgo the attempt. So here we are in the water, having jumped the Pequod and wading through and against anti-blackness, which is to say an apocalyptic extractive regime of world making. All I see are the ruins. A billion black Anthropocenes. All I see is an ecology at its end. Let's start there. With a whale, a hunted thing, a species that once lived on land and gave it up. We don't want no fucking country neither. Hunted as soon as it comes up for air. Let's begin with that snatched breath. With an ocean from which and over so much has been taken and deposited, and for which the ramifications remain without grammar. Let's begin with New World blackness, the belly of the whale, the catastrophic ends entangled with its emergence, the sentient folk on the outside of the human who are designated by this signifier. Whale song is a meditation that aims at extended thinking and conversation with thinking at the shoreline of blackness, the non-human animal, the middle passage, and ecological disaster. It is a written gesture in all of its uncertainty of moving toward the terror, desiring something beyond the terror while not knowing if anything lay on the other side of it. Whale song is an attempt at care with and for those in what Christina Sharp calls the wake. For if I cannot raise my dead, and I suspect I cannot, then I will bear witness past the edge of ruin and will wail this world till its end. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. In the water, gonna wade, gonna trouble, gonna children. In the water, gonna water, gonna wade, gonna gods. In the water, children wade. Children water, children gods. In the water, trouble water. Trouble wade, trouble children, trouble gods. In the water, gods trouble. In the water, God's children wade. In the water, trouble gonna water the wading children of God. Gonna trouble the children waiting, gonna water the children in God's water. In the children's water, gonna trouble the trouble. In the water, the waiting children are finished waiting in the trouble. In the water, the waiting children gonna trouble the gods. To be swallowed by a great fish in the belly of the whale at the end of the world might be as good a place as any to begin. What does it mean to be in the belly of the whale? To be in the belly and the whale. This is meant to say something about being, not only at the end of the world, but being itself and its zero, which is to say blackness. Somewhere in the water moves a big fish, sounds like a catch, moves like a hunted thing, its dark body. Somewhere in the water, a big fish is a gold rush, loot, mined for the resource of its dark body. Somewhere in the water, a big fish sounds like sea monster, cetacean from Katos. its dark body somewhere in the water as a haunt and the source of modernity torn from its dark body. Somewhere in the water, a big fish isn't a big fish. It is trade, a ledger mark, its dark body somewhere in the water as a metaphor, a fact of capital registered from its dark body. And there are bodies that are mind dismembered, distortions of distortion. C. Warren, situated solely as function, not persons. Perhaps here I will disclose my disavowal of humanist terms, that category holds its shape by way of the figure of the Negro doing the double work of being border for the human and the animal. There are no persons here, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. We are talking about bodies, the whale, and in the belly of the whale. Pip jumps the Pequod after hallucinating about the human and subsequently giving up on land. Movie pitch. It begins with a fever dream. Pip haunted by the ground he stands on, something terrifying about its sureness, its carcerality. No, it begins somewhere in his torn open throat, slit wide by a harpoon, camera panning each angle of Pip's neck as he wails, "Look, a Negro!" It begins with nothing. Screen black, dark as the ocean floor. No, it begins with something, a body, itself both more and less than one, laying on the deck of the Pequod, attempting to float, misjudging the surface for water, mistaking his lack of sinking for buoyancy. No, it begins with a disavowal of land, with Pip tasting that salt water and it doing something like the opposite of stripping him of wings. Pip jumps the Pequod. No, it begins the belly of the boat. Hold me until I break. In the break, a whale. Womb abyss. Perhaps there is no demand here, or no way to articulate it beyond raising the dead. And yet here I am talking about it as an event again, giving death a teleology. No, the ground has long been gone. Something must be made of the water. Water. Water is the weather, is the wake, is the wade. Water is the work, is the whale, is the world in the wake of the body, the baptism. In the wake is a world in which the fevered hands attend to the body, beguile asphyxiation of its abstract work. Walcott taught us that the sea is history, that interwoven into the depths are countless stories, actual bones. There was a time when we had belief, when we were a believer in a kind of delivery, not this body, no, but something animating this flesh would be delivered, that the bones could be gathered. There was a time when we believed, when we, being delivered, had belief that we had been born again. There are many births, as there are many bellies of the world. I'm interested in impossibilities. Like what it means to look squarely at the end and then look beyond it. Species impossibilities, such as breathing underwater. Nothing is a new world liquid asset. It knows what it is to be underwater. Nothing knows what it is to be impossible. For death not to be an event, but a state of being. To make a noise from within the wake. And what consideration can be made of a howl, the scream, noise emerging from the belly? How can one utter anything under the water? Preposition, to be under the water. Read the bones. Gather them together like printed matter, like a small city. Go further, past what you know, what is known. Dead reckoning in the water, not lost, just outside the enclosure of a single body. Go further, a league, 10 million years, a small thing, an ellipsis, and further, scour the seafloor for what has drowned. Move in two directions at once a body and not a body, nothing. Build a cathedral of bones until that submerged nothingness, that body underwater, once again finds itself on what has come to be called land. Inasmuch as being on land does not foreclose being underwater. That body on the land, under the water, picking its teeth with microfossils, some kind of remains, an enduring terror, impossibly possible. Take me to the water. There is something impossible about the land. I am unsure where this is being written, what it means to write a fragmented thing, to fragment a thing, a body, a spine, text everywhere. I am unsure this is a trustworthy thing. In fact, I am sure this is a thing not to be trusted. In the belly, at the end, a body and something more than a body. Whale. To begin any place might be a world, might be an end. To be swallowed in the world, in the end, might be as good an end as to be in the belly of the great fish, to be at the end of the world. Wherein Pip considers advising Ahab to lose his human coordinates but jumps the Pequod instead. Movie pitch. Scene begins with Pip approaching Ahab, a slow walk meant to dramatize the long durée of silence, the absented speech that forms Pip's there and not there-ness, the measured movements of contraband, each step an appeal to remain obscure, for the thing you are is smuggled, a secret open as the water. And then, midway to Ahab, Pip gives attention to the sea, its sound, the applause of waves crashing against themselves, the din of the deep having its own syntactical order, and suddenly, without saying a word, language being a fraught thing, a jagged tool, Pip looks back only to offer a wry smile, and with no maps to guide them, Pip jumps the Pequod, back arched as a dorsal fin, marine opening up with the stammer of uncountable life forms shifting in and out of each other, and somewhere out in the blue basement of the earth, somewhere surrounded by that cold cellar with no more than the drink visible, Pip emerges like air and sound, and all of that a world. Whale body, black water, black whale body, water body black, black body whale water, whale, black whale, body black, body black, black body, water whale, water, body water whale, black water body whale, black whale, water whale, body whale, black whale, whale, as though the body of the whale were a body, were a being, were a black being in the water, in an other world whale, and let the eruption from the body rend the world to the end of the world, a place wherein Pip concludes his body is not single and self-identical, wherein Pip determines he is also the whale and swallows the Pequod. Movie pitch. It is unclear where on the journey Pip decided a single body was unsuitable, but each day he would work depths of 40 feet, then 80 feet, then twice that again. It begins by learning not so much to hold one's breath, but how to better distribute the oxygen, a shrinking of the spleen, a releasing of oxygen-rich blood cells. One learns to slow the heart rate. One remembers something of their self that began in the water. What if the distance between the whale and the belly of the whale were imagined, were nothing more than a myth? What if Pip could insist on other folk tales, on an assemblage of materials and temporalities continually passing through them? Then it is not so much a stretch to say one relegated to silence the speculative position of the non-human animal is also the whale, that Pip could make new things of their body and swallow whole the things carrying the so-called old. It is unclear where on the journey Pip made these new things of his body, but who rides the Pequod when they can ride the ocean? To begin, in the end, which is a poor way to describe a point of departure, there was always already a connection to the water, to the thrashing body, its tremble and wail. Inhale. In the end, when we say whale, it may just be an attempt at articulating a spatio-temporality outside the human, or any desire to be on the insides of that category. Deep breath now. All of this matter is vibrating. All of this matter is less disciplined in its borders, undisciplined and without them. And deeper still, wail and ride the alter frequency, wail and fold time, frustrate a supposed linearity, This ain't the end of the world. It's after that. In the end, you are always already porous, nothing discreet. Into this water, we commit this body, becoming something somewhere else, always becoming, and from the water, something new, a too heavy grammar. In the end, the whale, another form of exhalation, breath and sound, wind and rattle. In the end, the whale, which is not to say the end of the whale, even if the end of the world. Nah, after that, all of the bones have not been gathered. There is no gathering them all. And yet, and there is no recuperation to be found here. And yet, breathe deep again. Enough air to hold us all. Enough oxygen for multiple worlds. In the end, nah, after that, and before it too, from the water, exhale a whale song.
Thank you so much, Sean. Beautiful. Sean's books are at that table. There's also some books from that were written about our work, Dancing Transnational Feminisms. Please check out this table. I want to thank my tremendous collaborators here, Jenny Ward, our managing director, Hadia Shire, our operations manager, Gary Peterson, also our managing director, and Keloha Ferreira, somewhere here, Keloha Ferreira, our artistic associate, Alexi Carlson, our tremendous live stream specialist. I want to thank you all. I want to thank the artists for reminding us that celebrations are always threaded through grief. That was a running theme in all of the tremendous presentations. I want to invite you to partake of some offerings that we have on the table, chat more with the artists, and join us for our water walk, our third procession on the 30th of this month at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Dhei, dhei, ta, dhagin, ta, thariki, ta, jam. Dhei, dhei, ta, dhagin, ta, thariki, ta, jam. Dhan, dhan, ta, tum ta tin ta te, tum ta tin ta te, ta, re, pa, jinam ta, ka jinam ta te. Dha, gete, te, ta, kita, drin, ta, tari, jam, ta. Dha, gete, te, ta, kita, drin, ta, tari, jam, ta. Re, ke, ta, jinam, ta. Takka jiram tatte, dhagate te ta kita drimta, tari jamta, kartkadhei.